What's up, everybody? This is your boy Chris Reeves back with another video, and today we are checking out Reason 14. Now, Reason 14 features a host of brand new workflow improvements, including improvements to the rack, sequencer, and mixer. In this video, we're going to be building a track step by step as we take a look at Reason 14's newest features. The first thing I want to point out about Reason 14 is that it is track and sequencer focused. We're going to start building this track one step at a time, and the first step is by adding in a drum loop. So if I go to our track in the sequencer, I have three options of creating tracks: audio track, track folder, or instrument. So I'm going to add in an audio track. Next, I'm going to open up my browser where I'll find my drum loop that I want to add. Click and drag to add the drum loop into the sequencer. Whenever you add an audio file to the sequencer, Reason will automatically detect the tempo of that file. If the tempo of your audio file doesn't match the project tempo you're currently using, Reason will stretch the clip so that it fits correctly. You can change this by going to Edit and selecting Reset to Unstretched Tempo. Right to the left of our sequencer, we will see our track panel. It shows us the name of our track, and it shows us our insert effects. Now, this is going to be very important because it will allow us to add in effects very quickly. We can add effects, instruments, send effects, all without ever looking at the rack. Down below, we will see sends. And these are sends that are already connected to our mixer. If we press this gray circle, it will turn green. And that lets us know that our send effect has been activated. Just below the sends, we have mute, solo, pan, width, and a fader, as well as metering for each track. That means you have access to the volume of each track without opening up the mixer. So far, we can get a lot done just from our sequencer, so that should speed up our workflow. So we have this drum track. Let's add the next element into our track by using our browser. I'll press F9, and our browser window will appear. And I know I want to use a piano for this next element. I want to make it even more specific by going to tags and choosing soft and organic. Using Reason's browser, I was able to find some keys, Reason's lo-fi piano patch from Mimic. I'll add the piano patch in. Let's add in some chords. Now I have drums and piano. And my drums are ending sooner than my piano does. If I highlight the clip and then hold Control and press D, it will duplicate the clip. But we got something even cooler. Now we have looped clips. At the top right edge of the clip, I will see my cursor change to this looped icon. And then I can click and drag, and that will create the loop. Also, if I click on the clip and then I go to the very top of my sequencer, I will see an option that says Loop Clips. I can click that, and then it makes it even easier for me to drag out that clip and create a loop. A new feature for Reason 14 is chase notes during playback. If I go here to Options and Playback and Recording, I will see an option for chase notes during playback. If I choose to play my song from here, these chords will not play. However, if I turn chase notes during playback, it will play from that position. So now we can hear the sound of the MIDI even from the middle part of the MIDI. Let's add a bass line into this track next. I already know that I want my bass line to come from monotone bass synthesizer. I don't have to open my rack. I can browse for patches right here in the track panel. If I go to my track panel, I will see a folder right there next to the monotone bass synthesizer image. If I click that folder, I will begin browsing for monotone patches, and I can preview those patches. I like that House Classic 1. Now let's record our bass part. Now let's let's check out the performance of my recording. I can quantize these notes by holding Control and pressing A, and then I can hold Control and press K, and all of the notes will be quantized. The velocity seems like it's a little bit off, so I'll come over here to our velocity area. Kind of want to set my velocity all to be the same. So I'll come over here to velocity and I'll click this button to set all of the notes to 100. What's great inside of our velocity window now is there are handles for us to be able to grab a hold onto each velocity of each note. Just something simple that helps us to be able to see how we can change the velocity of these notes without going over to our velocity area. I think that bass line sounds great, but I know there's a way we can beef it up and make it sound even better. Let's add a Combinator patch to our insert effects. I'll come over here to our track panel and I'll click Add Effect. From here, I can choose through all of my plugins and Reason effects to choose the effect that I want. Or I can click Add Effect, which will bring up our browser, and it will allow us to search for different effects inside of Reason. The effect that I'm looking for is inside of its Reason Factory Sound Bank in all effect patches, Dynamics, Bass. And we're gonna go with good old nasty bass. As soon as we choose the patch that we want, we will see it represented here in our track panel. I can add even more effects by clicking the same button and then choosing another effect that I want to add. Maybe a compressor or even a pulverizer. With the track panel, it's so much easier and faster to add in these effects into the insert effect area. If I want to bypass something, I just need to go to that effect and I will see this green circle. If I click the green circle, it will bypass that effect. If I want to get rid of an effect altogether, I can just click and press delete, and it will delete that effect from the insert effect area. Let's add our next element into our track. Every time we create a track, we're going to get a new rack. By default, rack per track is already checked in. What you can see now with our rack is that it only contains one instrument. That is the new rack per track feature. In rack per track, each track only shows one rack. I also can see the other instruments that are in my rack if I go to this button and I change it from single column mode to multi-column mode. So now I can see the other columns of my rack, including my master section, our drum loop from earlier, our mimic, which is playing our piano, and our monotone, which is playing our bass. Rack per track makes it really easy to stay focused and organized in creating your music. We're definitely moving somewhere with this track now. Let's add in some more drums. I'll go to our track and I'll add in a red rum drum computer. By double clicking on the track, we'll pull up our rack. If I click on this browse folder button, our browser will open up in the rack and we'll be able to browse for patches for the red rum drum computer. I'll go to my user library and I'll select one of these drum kits, drum kit 4. Let's go ahead and create a drum pattern with this one. One thing that was important to me was being able to route my drums into separate mix channels. If we flip our rack, we can route each of these drum channels to a new mix channel. And each time we add a new mix channel, we will see a number appear under our track panel. I'll go ahead and add the rest of our mix channels. Inside of this one rack, I now have 4 mix channels. I'll delete the first one because we don't need it anymore. Each of these channels are routed to different drums in my red rum drum computer, and I will see them here in our track panel. 1 represents our kick, 2 represents our snare, and 3 represents our hi-hat. Through our track panel, I can add insert effects to each of those drum sounds. I don't have to use the rack. I can do everything from the sequencer. Inside of my user library, I have a Combinator patch that I call Thumping Kick. Let's drag and drop that into our insert effect for our kick drum. Here's without Thumping Kick. And here's with thumping kick. We can select our snare track by clicking 2, and we'll see that our insert effect changes. And now, because this is our snare, we can add in our smacking snare. Click and drag that over to our insert effect. And here's how our smacking snare sounds. And now let's hear how our drums sound all together with these changes. Let's hear everything together. Now that we've done some arrangement, mixing, and overall finishing of the track, we'll go ahead and take a listen. And I have a few more Reason 14 features that I want to share with you before we finish. So the next Reason 14 feature that I want to talk about are track folders. If I want to create another track folder to organize all of these string parts, I just need to click and hold Shift to select all of the tracks. Then I can use Control-Shift-T, or I can right click and go to track folder and select move selected tracks to new folder. From here, I can name my folder strings. And again, I've organized my sequencer even further. Now, this track doesn't have that many parts, but imagine if the orchestra was broken down into its many different string elements. Suddenly, 15 tracks becomes 150. So we could put our drum sounds in a drum folder, and we can put our acoustic sounds in another acoustic folder. We can create another folder and call it melody. And then we can take anything that has a melody aspect to it, and we can drop that into that folder. We can do one more layer of folder, and we can just select all. And now we can drop our melody into that folder and our drums into that folder as well. With track folders, you can see now everything has been packaged into one clip. And of course, MIDI note chase still works as well. If I hold Alt, I can collapse every single thing inside of my track folder. And that is the power of track folders inside of Reason 14. Thinking about organizing and grouping has me thinking about bus channels. Of course, in our mixer, we can still pull up and create buses, but you can even do that from the sequencer now as well. Every track inside of the sequencer labels where its output is going to. So currently, everything is going to the master. So we can create a bus inside of the sequencer, assign our tracks to that bus, rename that bus, control the volume, pan, and EQ of that bus, all from the sequencer. When all is said and done and you're done with your track, now it's time to export your track. We'll go up to File and hit Export Song as Audio File. And we have a couple different options that we can choose from in terms of how we want to export our file. We can use audio, IFF, a WAV file, or MP3 file. I'll choose the MP3 for now. I'll hit save and allow Reason to do its export. What about when it comes to mastering or affecting the overall sound of your music? Well, in the sequencer, you also have a track for your master section. And just like we talked about earlier, you can use the browser to select different patches that you can load into the effect chain of your master section. You also can add in devices into your sends. It's as easy as clicking and dragging and hitting send. All in all, the changes to Reason 14 are really there to just help making music easier inside of Reason. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, please be sure to give it a thumb up. My name is Chris Reed. Thank you guys so much for watching. Until next time, peace.